Welcome to Talksicology, brought to you by Recovery Unplugged, the place where we talk about all things substance abuse, recovery, and mental health, with guests offering varying perspectives and viewpoints. Hosts Joseph Gorordo and Jason Cabello share about their addiction and recovery and other serious subject matter through lighthearted yet candid conversation.
Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Talksicology. My name is Joseph Gorordo, LCDC. I am your host, and here I have Mr. Jason Cabello, the co-hostess with the mostess.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, how's it going?
It's going all right, man.
Good.
I'm excited to be here.
So I would like to start this one off
Mm-hmm.
talking a little bit about Recovery Unplugged, as
Yes.
they are they write our checks.
Yes, so Talksicology is the world's greatest podcast on recovery, addiction, and mental health. And our title sponsor is Recovery Unplugged, which is
The greatest treatment center
the greatest treatment center
in the known universe.
in the known universe. Recovery Unplugged has locations in Florida, Texas, Tennessee, and Virginia, and is in network with most major insurance companies.
And good news is, it's also right at home. Now you can access Recovery Unplugged's life-saving treatment from the comfort of your own home. If you have Wi-Fi, you have treatment. It's as easy as that. You log in, you get some help.
You know,
Virtual service.
When we first started doing virtual stuff, I was a little on the fence about it.
Right, same here.
I was like, I don't know if that's going to match what we do in person. But I get to read reviews that clients leave. You know, when clients are done with treatment, we ask them, hey, how was your experience? How could you do better?
Right.
How could we do better, et cetera? And they love the virtual program.
I could see it benefiting, like I would have used it after treatment.
Yeah.
Like once I was done with my inpatient, my IOP, which if you don't know is intensive outpatient, which you go 3 or 4 times a week after you do your residential treatment. I think it would have benefited me a bit if I would have had that option to like hop on once or twice a week just to stay connected. But
Yeah. Well, you and I think of it from the perspective of bottom of the barrel users. One thing that I think has been really cool is that this is a great option for folks who have never been to treatment, aren't even sure if they're alcoholics or addicts, but know that they need more than just a therapist once a week.
Right. Because I know a lot of people that I know personally that maybe just got addicted to something like pain medication that was prescribed to them from a doctor, and then they had a problem getting off of it, but they didn't have what I had.
The ism.
They weren't ready to like run their life into the fucking ground and like do whatever it took to get more.
Yeah.
They just knew that it wasn't easy to stop. So there's
Well, fun counselor fact. We call that situational alcoholism or addiction. I had pain, so I got on these pills and I found myself addicted and I got off, right? Or another good example is someone who's going through a divorce or recently had a loss. They may drink or use more than normal for a time period
just to get off that.
Yeah, until they address whatever, maybe they go do some therapy and address their trauma
And I'm sure in other cases that could kick off something that's been lingering deep inside for a while, and it just awakens the beast.
Absolutely.
Because, again, I know other people who in their 50s became like full-blown addicts.
Yeah, super common. People who have worked their whole lives and drank their whole lives, and then they retire and they don't have anything other than work to fill their lives with, very often find themselves struggling with addiction late in life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So it's an equal opportunity offender. But
it is.
Recovery Unplugged is an equal opportunity
treatment
helper solution.
Yeah. Exactly.
So how you been?
I'm good, man.
Yeah.
How are you?
I had a really fun work task last night.
Let's hear about it.
We are doing search training at Recovery Unplugged today.
That's great.
And so I got to pack a suitcase and hide fake drugs in it. And my wife is out of town, so my mother is staying with us. So my mom got to watch me at the counter gleefully cutting up a straw, putting pebbles in the corner of a little baggie and tying it off. And it wasn't until I was done that I was like, oh man, I'm really good at making fake drugs. And my mom just watched me do that.
Oh, man, I was really good at making fake drugs. I sold fake drugs to so many people.
Oh, no.
I'm sure there's somebody who's just like flipping through who this comes up on their feed, and it's like, that's the motherfucker that sold me fucking macadamia nuts cut up and told me it was crack.
Did you make amends for that?
No. I did not. I mean,
I don't know.
it was.
How free do you want to be, Jason?
I mean, should I go back and find these people in the streets of Miami and be like, hey, man, I think I sold you a macadamia one night and told you it was crack. Here's the $10 back.
Probably not. I think most sponsors would advise.
I have made indirect amends to things like that, to where I would rip people off, and then what my sponsor would be like, where would you usually cut corners on this, like paying your taxes, stuff like this, like make it up there.
You know, I had to do one like that. We used to call it spanging, panhandling, basically.
Okay.
And in my panhandling, I, lied to people, right? My car broke down. I need gas. I need to buy formula for my baby that didn't exist, stuff like that. And so my indirect amends to all those people that I hustled was to, anytime I got asked for a donation, like Salvation Army, March of Dimes, whatever, I had to say yes.
Yeah.
Or if someone ever came up to me on the street, in a parking lot asking for money, I had to say yes for 5 years.
No questions asked.
Yes.
See, what I do, if somebody comes and asks me like, hey, I'm hungry, like, can I have some money for food? I always will drop what I'm doing and be like, I'm not going to give you money, but if you're hungry or you're out of gas, like, is your car at the gas station? I will go in and pay for you to get $10 worth of gas or whatever. And 9 times out of 10, they're always like, no, man, that's stupid. Like, I'll just take the cash. And I'm like, well.
So I tried to be like that with my sponsor. I'm like, but what if I know they want it for drugs? And he was like, you think people didn't give you money knowing that you wanted it for drugs? It's not your business. They need money. You know, if they're at the point where they're in a parking lot asking for help, and you know this, like when you're deep in your addiction, you need that. Yeah. You need it.
I've definitely given money to people, especially if they've been honest. You know what I mean? If they're just like, hey, man, do you have a couple bucks? I'm like, are you sick? Or I'm like, yeah. I'll be like, yeah, here's a couple bucks.
Yeah.
Like, because it's like they're at that point of their desperation when they're asking for money. What's the next step? Are they going to rob somebody? Are they going to have to go sell themselves or do something like that? So if I could, that's the way that I would justify it to do it, to be like,
And here's the thing, like, if I happen to have a couple bucks in my pocket, which I normally don't carry cash, but if I have $2-3 in my pocket and I give it to someone who asks me on the street, it's nothing to me. You know?
Wow.
But it could change their $2-3
Big
bucks.
shot.
Yeah. No, but you know what I mean? Like, I remember people handing me like when cars used to have ashtrays and they'd have all their change in there and they'd just be like, here you go. And they'd dump, $4 worth of change in my hand. That was like life-changing.
No, man. If I got invited to like a friend's house who I wasn't gonna like rip off like big stuff for, I would always look for the change jar. And I have a big amends to make to a friend of mine who let me into his home. He's passed since, but his ex-wife, they were divorced before he passed away. Like, they let me stay at their house all the time. And I found a big jar of like change, but like pretty valuable coins and stuff. And I took all of it.
I appreciate the way you phrased that. You're like, if I was at a friend's house who I wasn't going to rip off for something big. So it wasn't if you were going to rip them off. It was to what degree am I willing to screw you over?
Yeah. I haven't gotten in a lot of RSVP cards lately.
Oh, well, should we get to our guest?
Yeah, let's
get to our guest.
Yeah. So this is somebody who's never ripped me off because we met in recovery. And when I moved to Austin, it's funny, I have an old friend from Miami who was like, you should meet this guy, Carlos. He does tattoos, he skates, he's in recovery. And then once I moved here, my friend Dylan, who works at No Comply, the local skate shop, was like, you should meet Carlos. He's this dude, he's in recovery, he skates, blah, blah. And then one day at the skate park, like, he pulled up, and I just knew that was Carlos. So, let's bring out Carlos Truan.
Woo!
There he is.
Carlos, welcome to the show.
Hi, guys.
How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, don't look nervous. Loosen up a little bit.
Do I look nervous?
You look a little bit nervous. There we go.
All right.
There we go. Look, there he is.
Slouch, you mean?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I was trying to sit up straight because he was saying that.
Well,
you were like,
well, the last time we're still getting used to recording in this format, and last time I kind of was sitting like this,
and checking his phone
and checking my phone. And towards the end of the show, my back started to hurt, but I didn't want to move because it was going to make my chair creaky, so I just stayed like frozen.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah, good to have you, man.
Thanks for having me,
my homie Carlos. Yeah, no, it's good to have you on, man. It's one of the first people who I met outside of Recovery Unplugged in Austin in recovery, who I hang out with all the time. So,
and I'm really excited because I don't know a ton about you, and normally we have guests that like either I know or we both know pretty well. So this is like fun,
sweet.
Yeah. So I guess Carlos, let's just start off with like the basics. You know, where are you from? You know, what do you do?
I'm originally from a town in South Texas called Brownsville, Texas. It's the last city before you get to Mexico.
Yeah. Puro 956.
Puro 956. That's right, homie. And I moved here in 1995.
Were you sober already then?
Oh, yeah. I've been sober since 1995.
Oh, man. I don't
know. I've been sober. In July 17th, I just celebrated 10 years.
Yeah. Right on.
I moved here, in 1995.
So I'm curious. So I grew up in Laredo.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So not the Valley.
Yeah, very similar.
But very similar, right? And I tried to get sober and go back to Laredo for about 6 years.
Oh, shit.
And I didn't stay sober until I never went back. Not that you can't get sober down there, but my experience was that like the recovery wasn't really strong down there.
Right.
Very small groups. Not a lot of treatment options, you know.
What were the treatment options out there? Like mental hospitals?
Not even mental hospitals. It was like, unless you got arrested,
jail.
Yeah, unless you got arrested, you weren't getting anything because it was all the services were through like the probation department and stuff like that, pretty much. Or there was some hardcore Christian places down there, like Outcry Barrio kind of things. But so when you were in the Valley, though, you were not looking for recovery.
Not at all.
Not at all.
No. I did the furthest I ever. Well, when I would go back and visit, I'd be on the methadone program and I'd go to the methadone clinic.
Yeah.
That was the only like thing. And then when I moved back, I moved to LA for a while. Lived in LA for a few years. When I came back, I was like totally down and out. My mom was like, "All right, if you want to get sober, like." I'll help you out. Let's find like a free treatment center, and there was one in the Valley, not in Brownsville. It was like a little further up the Valley.
Like Edinburgh, something like that.
I want to say it was like Far.
Yeah.
Or Far, Edinburgh, somewhere up there.
For our friends listening at home, there is a town in South Texas called Far, spelled with a PH.
Oh,
PH.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I can't remember where exactly it was, but it was called Esperanza.
Yeah.
Yeah. Esperanza.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And it was pretty weird. It wasn't, I mean, it was all right, but it was pretty hood, there wasn't much happening there. And I went there for, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks. And then, I called some friends here in Austin and they were like, yeah, just get back up here and we'll put you to work,
So go ahead.
So how did you get to that point, right? We're already like, oh man, like Carlos is going to treatment and stuff, but like, what was the progression like for you? I mean, nobody sets out to be a dope fiend, right? So what happened?
I started using real young. I grew up in like a neighborhood. We got like middle class, but like it was right on the cut. You know what I mean? Right there, and then from there was like, I grew up 9 blocks from the border.
Yeah.
Was my house, and
what was the bad neighborhood called in Brownsville?
Well, there was a bunch. The one just a couple streets down was La Para.
Yeah,
that was pretty bad. Southmost, that was pretty bad too.
Laredo was Chacon.
At Chacon,
if you were in Chacon, nothing
you were
good.
in trouble.
Yeah. And then my neighborhood, like right that street, the next street over, it was all right. It was El Ramireño,
Yeah.
and we're considered on the west,
Yeah.
you know. But it was like, you know, a bunch of older guys, and you know, they were, you know, full on pachucos, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Full on, you know, dudes that had been in and out. They were much older, and you know, I smoked weed and stuff,
Yeah.
and I'd kind of kick it with those guys.
So
and,
were you looking up to these guys? So like
Oh,
13,
man.
14-year-old
Yeah.
kid? Yeah.
Yeah, I thought they were really cool. And my dad was like, you don't want anything to do with these people, you know. And my dad was an educator, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
both
he
your
was,
parents, right? Were
yeah,
teachers?
yeah, they were both teachers. And my father would, like, you know, help these guys read and whatever, you know what I mean? My dad was all about his people, you know.
Right.
And he, you know, he definitely tried to help. And I was like, I definitely thought these guys were, you know what I mean? Like,
You wanted to be like them.
yeah,
Yeah,
man, I thought they were cool. Their tank tops and their, you know, their chino pants and their Stacey Adams and their, you know what I mean, all their tattoos. And
especially with your
Yeah.
parents being like, you
No.
cannot hang
Yeah.
out and be like one
Right.
of these cool
Yeah.
guys who sits on the corner and,
Yeah.
and has fun with his friends all the time.
swag, man, they were just like, you know what I mean? These guys had no money,
Right.
but
There was a
just
presence. There was a
dripped,
presence
you know
to
what I
them.
mean?
Yeah.
They just had, you know, they were just like style, you know?
Right.
And man, I thought they were cool. And you know, I'd get home, you know, you know, like anybody else, right? Like I didn't want to follow any rules, you know what I mean? So it's like they you know, they set a curfew and I didn't listen, you know. And so when I got home, when my other friends that were kids had to be home at a certain time and they were going to listen,
You would stay out.
I would stay out and they'd be right there across the street. So I started drinking 40s with them and smoking weed, and
So
they were always talking about chiva.
Yeah. China.
And I didn't know, and I didn't really know, you know what I mean? Like that was a slang word. I spoke Spanish, but I didn't know.
exactly.
And I was like, and finally one day I was like, man, what the hell are y'all talking about? And they were like, you don't want to fucking know, I said.
No,
You're
la
too
cura
young.
homes.
They were
Yeah.
like, you're too little. And I was like, fuck, dude, what do you mean? You know what I mean?
I'm a man.
I was like, I got this, you know?
So were you like, so you're a tattoo artist by trade now. So were you like into artwork, doing graffiti, stuff like that when you were a kid?
Never into graffiti. I always kind of did art. My father was an art teacher. He was
Okay.
the chairman at the art department at the university right there.
Oh, okay.
So I was like very involved in art and art stuff. You know what I mean?
You
I was always
started up
kind
a
of
little
pushed.
bit higher brow than,
No.
than the street stuff.
So did you jump straight from weed and booze to heroin?
Pretty much, yeah. Straight, yeah. I was 14 or 15. I can't really remember exactly, but it went down something like that.
Yeah.
You know that. You know, I asked, and then they said, "Oh, it's heroin," and I was like, "Shit, I want to try that."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The weed wasn't really like. I mean, it was just weed, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, you know, the booze, what you get a little like fucked up or whatever, you know. But I wanted to know what the other thing was, and I found out, you know.
Yeah.
And I obviously I didn't become full blown heroin addict, but I always kind of was on the lookout for it, and I couldn't
Yeah.
get it too. I couldn't really, like, you couldn't, you know, like it was harder for me to get because those guys weren't going to give it to me all the time, and I
No.
couldn't go to the connection at 14. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
So what was the first time? What was the first time that you actually tried it?
this guy, his name was Skin, this old Mexican dude right there, and there was about 3 of them, and yeah, it was his brother and then this other dude. And I had $5. It doesn't sound like much.
That's half a fix.
Right.
Yeah, it was a $10 paper. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was that's what they were.
This is
And
like,
then-
like
and then-
1988 or something, right?
Yeah. And so we pitched in, and I had $5 though, and they had like each one of them had a couple bucks, and
Yeah.
they gave me just a fraction of a paper, and I like went out.
Yeah.
And I woke up and they were hosing me down with the water hose, and I was like, fuck, what happened? They were like freaking out. You know, they were like, your dad's gonna fucking kill us. You got to get your ass home. You know what I mean? Like,
And
they were
that's a
like-
very like South Texas thing.
Yeah.
Not worried about the cops.
Yeah,
Not worried
yeah,
about
right.
like
It's
if
gonna
you
fucking kill
die.
us, yeah.
It's your dad's gonna be so mad at us.
and I kept it a secret, man, from like, you know, like all my other friends. Like no one ever knew that I would go off and run off with.
So
You know,
really
'cause-
you did the double life thing pretty early on.
I started double
Yeah.
life really early.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And any chance I could get away to, you know, do that thing, and then someone shortly after, you know, they were, you know, because my friends, like later on, a couple of years later, my other friends that I was kicking it with, the regular friends, they were down to snort some cocaine.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and I hated it, right? Because the taste in the throat. You know what I mean? I was like, this is disgusting, right? And my buddy Chichon from the projects, he was like,
that means man with big titties.
yeah. He said, I said, hey bro, there's got to be a better way for this. I was like, is there other way to do this? And he was like, bro, you can make a rock, dude.
Yeah.
You just, put the baking soda in the water and you take a little penny. And I was like, hell yeah. I tried that and I started doing that. And then it was like,
that was the one that was off to the races. No,
man,
no double live. Just
no,
we're
man.
doing it.
Yeah. When my friends, and for some reason they were okay with that, but they didn't want to do it really. They wanted to sniff it or whatever, but,
so that
still,
that first time you got that like ringing in your ears and everything,
like,
were you all in?
Yeah.
Look, Jason's all into it.
Yeah,
I remember that because I mean I did mine way later in life,
but like needles and heroin, it was like super super taboo where I was from. You know what I mean?
It still is. It still is. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah,
for a
circles.
kid to be doing it. You know. But then I moved to Austin. I got in some
How
trouble.
old are you at this point?
I was 19.
Okay.
I moved from. I left home shortly after I used. About a year later, I took off, and then I was gone for a little bit. Then my dad got sick. I came back home, and he died. And then I stayed in Brownsville for a little bit.
How old were you around this time when your dad died?
My dad died when I was 17.
Okay.
So I came back. He died in my arms. And it was pretty crazy. And, they're educators and I didn't have an education. So my mom was like, you should get your GED, right? So I went, barely able to read. I stopped going to school real young.
Yeah.
I stopped. By seventh grade, I really wasn't going to school anymore.
Yeah.
I would go, but I would cut class. I think I'd missed like 3/4 of the year.
Yeah.
And then they sent me to another school and then barely graduated 8th grade. Then I went to 9th grade and then I just like failed out. And I got sent to like an alternative school, like for bad kids or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, man, fuck this, I just took off. So I took off, and then my mom came and found me at my job, and she was like, you got to come home and see your dad. He's real sick. And I didn't realize the severity of it. And then he ended up passing. And then I stuck around. I got the GED. I guessed through the whole thing.
Did your dad passing kind of straighten you out a little bit for a minute?
Not at all. No, I kind of felt like maybe. I kind of felt like I had to do this thing for a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I was still definitely partying.
Yeah.
It put something in your head though.
And I had to get a job. I didn't stop partying, but I had to like get a real job because before that I was just like hustling,
Yeah.
So at that point you're like, I need to start using successfully.
Yeah.
I need to make a change. It's definitely not going to be quitting.
Yeah.
But I need to at least be able to get up, go get a job, and then I get out afterwards.
I still did all the drugs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then now I had a paycheck, and I was staying at my mom's house, so I had to pay rent.
Yeah.
And then I was like, man, this just ain't for me. And I moved to South Padre. Are you familiar with that area? It's like, the little beach town right there. It's like an island or whatever. And I moved there, and I like got a job at a t-shirt shop, and started selling drugs because all those people wanted drugs. You know what I mean? I would go to Brownsville, which is across the bridge and down, 25, 30 minutes down, and I could get them real cheap because I was from the neighborhood. And I was friends with all the guys, and then I started moving them.
So back in the day in Laredo, when I was still doing all that kind of stuff, a pound of decent Mexican swag weed was like $100. And we would, during spring break, we would drive to South Padre because there was a way to go from Laredo to South Padre without hitting any checkpoints. It was kind of a roundabout way, but you could do it. And we would go sell these $100 pounds to college kids who were down for spring break from, Wisconsin, Michigan, other states. And we'd be like, hey, you want to buy a pound? $500. And to them, it was like a deal.
Yeah.
Sweet deal.
They were like, oh my God, no way.
And just like moving 1 pound from here to there, not cutting it up or bagging it, just whoop to whoop. Well, that's pretty easy.
Yeah. And we would do it every day, the whole month of March.
It sounds that that
I think
sounds like a pretty good deal.
the statute of limitations is up on that, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
Because I'm about to tell you some crazy shit.
but that's like a very common like South Texas
Yeah.
thing. Like unfortunately,
Everyone does it.
Yeah, and unfortunately in South
everyone's-
Texas, like drugs are all real cheap.
Yeah.
Because they haven't been stepped on yet, and also like at least in Laredo, right? Pretty much everybody, 90% of the town is in some way involved
Connected.
in something illicit.
Okay.
Either through a family member,
Yeah.
or through like minor gang stuff, like letting them use your business to store stuff, little things like that. It's super, super common.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a community. You know what I mean?
Right.
Good, bad, or otherwise.
Yeah.
It's like people that are doing this. People are doing that. So if you come across an opportunity to be like, hey, yeah, I know a guy.
Yeah. Like the hood thing of like buying speakers out of the back of someone's trunk.
Yes.
Like everyone in Laredo does that kind of stuff.
For sure. Yeah.
Anyway, so let's fast forward. Like at what point in your life did you start to think like, you know what, this might be a problem?
Well, I moved to Austin.
Yeah.
I ended up moving to Austin shortly after. I'd like picked up some charges down there, and then a buddy of mine was like, "Man, you got to get up to Austin. I was just like, I was getting really bad down there, and I was like really young, and I got really into hallucinogenics. I just like my life was falling apart, and I didn't really realize it. And a buddy of mine was like staying at his mom's. He's like, I kind of don't have a place to stay, but we can kind of stay at my mom's. Bring up whatever you have."
Yeah.
Remember back then, it's the 90s, right? Like, don't talk on the phone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, and he was like, that's all I'm going to say,
If you got any green pizzas?
Yeah. And I got into this, right? And then that turned into like a whole huge operation years down the road. And I started off pretty small, and green pizzas, lots and lots of green pizzas.
Yeah.
And to here in Austin. And some years passed, and I got so involved in that with a certain group, and I ended up making a lot of money, and my habit just like went insane.
Yeah.
Like really, really bad. And I wasn't even, I don't think I was even 21 yet. I think I was like 20 or 21.
Yeah.
Barely,
Yeah.
And man, I had so much money. I had more money than I knew what to do with. And,
so what was your day to day when you're doing this operation? What was like an average day or week looked like for you?
Drug wise?
Yeah, I mean, just
my intake.
What you were doing to make this money.
I made it to a point where I didn't have to do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would show up. We would make sure it was all there, and then someone would pick it up. Then a month later, we'd get some money. And then we'd figure out how to package this money to get it back to our bosses.
Gotcha.
And we would get a huge cut.
Yeah.
It was a small cut. It was a small cut, but
From a big pie.
yeah.
A big green pizza.
And for someone that age in that time, it was kind of a lot of money.
Yeah.
So where because this, I mean, the still addict inside of me is like, well, then why the hell did you stop? That sounds like a pretty sweet deal. Where'd it turn?
Like, what made you start realizing it was a problem?
So these guys were getting kind of fed up, right? Because they're like, I mean, I got so sick that I called my mom right down there. My poor mother. Yeah. I was like, hey, I need to come down and see you. I've got a problem, right? I'm on drugs. And she was like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, she knew I smoked weed and shit. She'd seen me like really messed up one time on cocaine, but she didn't really know, And I was like, well, I'm on heroin. Yeah. And she was like, what do you mean? What is that? Like, she didn't know.
Yeah.
She was like, what do you mean heroin? And I was like, heroin, man.
Like, Mom, like the worst one.
Like the worst thing. Imagine the movies, you know what I mean?
Is that a nickname for marijuana? I don't understand what you're telling
right?
me.
You mean weed. Yeah. And I was like, she was like, okay, and I went down there, and there used to be a doctor here in Austin called Dr. Jones. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar? Dr. Jones, which just so happens that was his name. He was an addictionologist or whatever, whatever you call it. And he was like, everyone went to him. And, I'd been in and out of the methadone clinic because I was like kind of already trying, you know what I mean? Because I was like, man, this is insane, right? And, I was using like, a couple grams of heroin a day. And I think at that time I was still shooting coke. I'd switched from smoking it to shooting it.
Right.
And then I think around 25, I didn't have any more veins, so I couldn't shoot it anymore. And then that's when I was like full on crack. But
so nothing, it doesn't sound like any major, really bad things happen. Like you just got tired of living that life.
Sure.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I mean, there was some stuff that was happening. You know what I mean? It was just like, the business partners and the people that were above me were like, hey, this dude's like, like 125 pounds, you know what I mean? Like looking really bad. And I wasn't doing anything shady.
Yeah.
I knew better than
Nothing came up short.
Nothing ever came up short. I was a hustler. It was still my connection.
Yeah.
It was still my thing. You know what I mean? It was still, I was, glorified middleman basically.
See, but like in organized crime, at least, South Texas, Mexican organized crime, right? The second you start to look like a junkie, you're a liability, right? Like you can't, with me, I was never at that level, but we would go steal stuff from, Walmart, Walgreens, detergent, that kind of stuff. And it got to the point where my buddies were like, don't come. Cause you walk in with us.
Yeah.
And all eyes are on us. Cause I looked so bad.
Yeah. But I mean, they would come up and see us. They would come up to Austin and they would come and either, pick up money or just to visit or whatever. And, the fucking cowboy boots and the belt buckle and the hat, you know what I mean? And these are full on,
Yeah.
Yeah. And they did come with us to the old emos, to the punk shows.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They loved it. It was cool. I mean, it was, it was all right, and I just got to a point. Well, so what I was going to say was what I ended up trying to get off. Someone was saying from the methadone clinic, like, you should talk to Dr. Jones. You know what I mean? Go see him. And I went and saw him, and it's actually a really crazy story. I don't know if we have time.
Yeah,
because you guys probably know about this. So I went to see Dr. Jones. He put me on, it was called the cocktail, right? And he put you on this 7 pills that you take. And I went home and went to my mom's house, and it was horrible. I got so sick. And some of the pills made you so weak, right? It was it would mess you up so much that, then you're dope sick on top of it. And, and I was really sick. And then I came back home. I was 13 days sober. You know what I mean? I got this, right? Let me smoke a joint. Let me drink a beer.
Yeah.
Let me shoot some dope. Yeah. Let me smoke some crack. Or whatever.
Just a little bit.
And then back on it.
Shoot
right?
crack like a gentleman.
And then I did Dr. Jones's thing again, right? Because my habit was so bad, and I was getting so sick. I was so sick because I could use so much because I had enough money to use as much as I wanted. And I did it again, and then probably I didn't like the cocktail. So the third time I tried to get off, I went to Mexico. I went to see my mom. I went down to Matamoros, and I went to the first pharmacy, and I was 3 days I hadn't used. So it was the worst. I was just
you're
drenched in sweat, runny nose. And I tell this doctor, I said, look, I'm just going to tell you straight up, right? I speak Spanish too, so I'm telling him straight up, you know what I mean? And so I get his attention that I speak Spanish, right? He's not I'm not some tourist, even though I look like a weird skater person, you know what I mean? So I probably looked insane. And I tell him what was up. I said, I want some liquid Valium. And he was like, no, dude, you need to try this. It was these ampules. It was called Demgesic.
It's a synthetic analgesic. Yeah.
You know this.
Yeah. So, it comes in the little glass things. You snap them off.
So I said, can I do it in the restroom? And he's like, yeah, hurry up. And I didn't know any better, so I did it in the vein.
You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do it. But man, I got well immediately. And then so I bought a couple boxes, went back to my mom's, and I was good. I wasn't high, but I was fixed,
You
right?
weren't dying.
Yeah, it was 3 days, so it was the perfect amount. And I ended up, using once I got home. I stayed clean for a little bit, and then after that stuff ran out, I stayed clean. I was like, I'm going to change my life. And then, a couple of weeks, right? got loaded.
How many years did you spend doing this dance of like, I'm kind of trying, I'm kind of not, let me do this, let me do that?
I got sober in 2012,
and this started in 99?
Started using like that?
No, that you started trying to like get sober in some way or another.
No. I moved to Austin. I started like that whole Demgesic thing was like 97.
Yeah. So you spent like 15 years sort of trying to get sober, trying to get out of it.
Yeah. I got sober in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
The first time.
Okay.
Yeah, I got locked up and I ended up getting sober. And I got out and I worked 1, 2, 3 and then stopped and then just went to meetings, drank the coffee, and I ended up staying sober for like 3.5 years.
So question about that, right? So we talk about like when I work steps with sponsees,
Mm-hmm.
right? I show them step 12 where it says, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. And I talk to them about how the real relief doesn't come until you've been through all the work, right? So how was your spiritual condition during that time where you worked 3 steps but still weren't getting high? Like, were you happy? Were you irritable, restless, discontent? Like, what was that experience like for you? All of it?
All that, yeah.
So you were just
and I was still down to like do kind of whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're still living a life of crime. But
I would still like kind of like if something came up and someone wanted to do, someone needed something or whatever, or, a stolen bike, a stolen motorcycle, you know what I mean? Like whatever,
Making ends meet.
Yeah, I would do whatever. I mean, I was doing good, I was doing fine, but that lifestyle was still very appealing to me. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have to do this deal where I sold like a half pound of weed. You know what I mean? I was, it was like I was doing well for myself at that time in that in those years.
And you're tattooing as well at this
point,
correct?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you're making some decent money.
Yeah.
You're working the type of job where it's like you could come in however you want to come in as long as you're getting what you need to get done. And you're not raising any red flags. People probably aren't coming up to you and being like, "Hey man, you really need to get your shit together." You're showing up and doing what you have to do. And there isn't much consequence to it, right?
Yeah.
I have a question about tattooers in recovery. Yeah. Why are there so many sober tattooers? Because without even trying, I feel like half the time, whoever's sticking a needle in my arm is a dude in recovery.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, I'm not going to put them on blast on the podcast.
We need names.
But we could talk after.
Yeah. We'll take
I know a lot. I mean, I on the way here, I just got out the phone with one of my sponsees that's a tattoo artist.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that tattooing kind of lends itself to that. You know what I mean? It's like I wake up and I'm drawing and I'm doing my stuff. You know what I mean? And like, luckily, like now, right? Like I have like this crazy, I try to like practice these other things. Like I wake up and before I do anything, I pray and meditate, right? And then I cook my son breakfast. I feed him. I get him to school, and then I come home and I draw a little bit. But it's like a lot of guys or a lot of people that tattoo, men and women both, right? It's like you're so involved in your craft.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you start early, prepping for the day, then you get to work and you tattoo all day, and it's like super late. You got a pocket full of cash. Why not stop at the bar?
What are you gonna do?
Yeah. Like a lot of tattooers, end up.
Yeah.
And a lot of shops too, especially some that I would hang out with in South Florida growing up. It's like they're on the beach. They're right around the party thing. So people are coming in and out in party mode. And it's like, they don't give a shit if you're going to go and do like a bump of coke while you're tattooing them. It's not necessarily celebrated because there are a lot of very serious tattoo shops. There's probably more very serious tattoo shops than there are the party shops.
Yeah.
However, if you are at these party shops, there's a lot of party shops.
So let's fast forward again. Okay. So let's get to you've been sober since 2012.
2012.
What was the magic mix for you to finally get it going?
So I had relapsed in was it 2009, I think, and I had relapsed before that, and I got on the methadone program.
Yeah,
I had that 3.5 years from 2002, and I had like three and a half years or something like that, and then relapsed. I did everything for about a month or two, and then got on the methadone program. Then I was in a pretty bad motorcycle accident, and I'd like broken everything, and they put me on the morphine, and then afterwards, and then I had to have like the surgery, and it's like I was constantly being given like, not that that's what did it. I mean, I was already on methadone. You know what I mean? So I was like,
they didn't break anything that wasn't already broken.
Yeah. So I was like, they were like, oh my God, they gave me pills, and all of a sudden I started shooting dope. And it's like about a year after the surgeries and everything, I was just riding my motorcycle down the street, and I saw this dude, and I was like, I know what he's doing. Yeah. He was an old friend of mine, and then off to the races, and it was about from 2009, 10, 11, and then I got locked up 2012. In that time, I ended up racking up. It took a little while to like really, really fall off, because I was doing really well with my work at that time. I was really busy. I made really good money, and then I started racking up felonies. Just like one thing after another. Just like I was like I got involved. Once I started using it, I got involved again. Right. Like pretty heavy. And
what year was your daughter born?
2008.
2008.
Yeah. So a year after she was born, I started using. It was like her birthday, her year birthday.
Yeah. So you had told me a story one time about when she was with you, and then somebody had you had ran into somebody you had ripped off.
Yeah. Well, I owed them money. It was on the last thing that we did, right?
Yeah. What was tell us about that.
So I mean, my house, I own a house right there down on the east side, right by 12th and Chicon, basically, and this was back then when it was still popping right there.
Yeah.
And
that was the heart of the drug scene in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, that was the only one of the only open air, drug things that we had here, like a big city, but we only had that one. Yeah. It was pretty hard to get dope there. Yeah. I don't know if you could get dope, but someone maybe could take you to it, but it was mainly crack. And I went down, and I owed somebody some money, and I went down trying to avoid him when I was like watching my daughter, and I had her in the little stroller, and this dude just the dude that I owed the $20 to, or $19, I think it was, you know what I mean? Something stupid like that, You
shorted him $1 and still owed him.
And like I didn't have the full whatever. Like I was like, dude, I only got a couple bucks or $1 or something. It was like for some reason it was like $19 or something, And so this dude comes out of nowhere, and he's like, yo, what's up, dude? You got my money? And I was like, no, dude. And he's like, what are you doing down here? And I was like, I was trying to see if anybody else was going to front me, but I did have the money, but that's all I had. You know what I mean? And the dude just like, pulls out a pistol, you know what I mean? And I was like, dude, I'm with and before I could even finish the sentence, he's like, I don't give a fuck if you're with your daughter, man. You're going to make it right now. And I gave him the fucking money I had in change, I was like, fuck, man, this dude like had a gun, you know what I mean? I was like with my little baby daughter, like she's in a stroller, pretty lame. Yeah, it's really not cool, like I still think about that shit all the time,
Yeah.
But,
is that one of those, so that didn't get you to straighten up that moment, but I'm sure it built up, and then so you ultimately got clean in prison, correct?
In jail, I was in the county jail. Yeah, I mean, I was still kicking when I got to the unit, But so in those years, in the years leading up to it, I started doing crime again, and I started racking up felonies. I think at the end of it, when the last time I got caught, it ended up being 13 felonies. Wow. So I mean, not like trying to like, oh, look at my 13 felonies. You know what I mean? Like that's how far I had gone. And they was like in all different counties too. It was 3 different counties, 13 felonies.
Were you up in Wilka?
No, thank God. Thank God. Yeah. And
Wilco is the county around here that has a reputation for being the hardest on low-level drug offenses.
Oh, okay. Like no humans involved kind of place. Like if you OD and die. Have you guys ever been through that with like a cop when you see somebody who dies or ODs and they give it an NHI, which is no human involved. Oh, like to where it's just like an addict is just like
not a human.
Yeah, that happened when I overdosed in New Jersey. That's what the paramedics came, and I was essentially an NHI but luckily the one paramedic like kept on shooting me with an Narcan, but I could have.
Wilco's more like, okay, a couple of years ago they tried to put a high school football player away for life because of brownies with marijuana in them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's Wilco.
Yeah, you run into people in the county jail like that got caught up in Wilco, or you run into them in prisons like that. This dude from Austin had 10 pounds of weed and he's doing 3 years. Then you meet up and then the dude next to him got caught with 1 pound and he's doing 25 years, type shit.
That's Wilco.
Type shit for real.
We're almost out of time, so let's get you sober, man.
So I racked up those felonies. I ended up getting caught. I was homeless. I didn't have anywhere to live. I was just kind of staying from place to place, and I was out making my runs. I got caught up again, and I gave a fake name, the name that I always used, and then for whatever reason, the dude comes back, and I said, "Hey, man, that's not my name." And he's like, "What?" I was like, "My name's Carlos Truan." He's like, "Why'd you lie to me?" I said, "I guess you're fixing to find out." He's like, comes back and he's like, "What the fuck, dude?" He's like, "I guess I would have lied too," And I was like,
he's like, "Apparently you're a criminal."
Yeah, I mean, and I didn't just get pulled over. I mean, he stopped me. I ran. I fought, and then and then I'm bleeding, and they're like, "What? Why did you run?" You know what I mean? I was like,
earn their money that day.
You know what I mean? Always, man. You got a job to do, man. I'm going to make sure that you're going to do it every time.
Hold the police accountable.
Yeah, I'm not going to let you get this money that easy. You know what I mean?
The opinions of this podcast are only those of the hosts and not of Recovery Unplugged.
So man, I was tired, man. I'd been running, you know what I mean? I was like on the run. I was dealing, with these 3 different three different counties. And I had a taste of recovery, you know what I mean? And
you knew there was something out there.
I knew there was something out there, and I had some really, really good friends that had been through it, you know what I mean? And they were sober and they were living, they had found the light, you know what I mean? And I knew that I could do it. And I was tired of running. And from that moment when they locked me up in the county jail, and I've got, literally like every time shit on the back of my jumper and vomit on the front of my jumper. You know what I mean? Because I'm kicking dope. I mean, I'm a hope to die junkie. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I've got a gnarly habit, and and I'm in that jail cell, and I'm I smell like shit and puke. Literally like no joke. And I was like,
it's a long way from the dudes on the corner with the wife beaters and the chinos and the whole.
Yeah, it didn't work out. Yeah, no. Yeah, and I said to myself at that moment, I said, I'm gonna do whatever these people tell me to do.
Yeah,
these people meaning
the recovery cats.
Y'all.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
the AA classes
and AA classes. Yeah,
that's the thing.
Yeah.
I went to treatment a bunch of times for like 6 years.
Yeah,
and people asked me like, well, what was different the last time? It was like I did what they told me to do.
Yeah.
I quit having ideas.
That was it. Yeah, that was it. I stopped. I'm going to do whatever they tell me to do. And I was like, like I had some pretty serious charges in that, one of the charges that I had, was like I'd stolen a car, and they were accusing me of trying to, when the cops caught me at the trap house in Dallas, they said that I tried to run the cop over, and it ended up getting no bill. There was no, and I was really fortunate, and I rolled the dice too. I didn't have an attorney, nothing, and I said I'm just going to get a whatever, what do you call it, court-appointed lawyer, and I said I'll take whatever they give me, literally, you know what I mean? They said 8 months in Travis County, Jesus. 8 months in Dallas, 2 years in Smithville, whatever it was, you know what I mean? And I ended up only doing 11 months. You know what I mean? Somehow, somehow I'm going through TDC. I went to state jail and I went to TDC, and then I end up in a drug program in a the Safe P or whatever. Yeah.
Out in San Angelo?
No, I went to, I've been twice actually. Yeah, I've been twice. Same situation. I went to state jail, TDC, and then to Safe P.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I love about these stories, though? It's like, to the normie listening, it's just like, oh my God, what? And then like, they just let you like free, like after like you found recovery. they should make a movie about your life.
Yeah,
and to
right.
most people, it does sound that interesting.
Yeah.
But you go into most meetings and you hear this shit every day.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're just like, I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
The judge must have been in a good mood that day, but they asked me what I'm doing. I said I got a year clean, and they just said, all right, time served. Here's your fine.
I did everything though. You know what I mean? And when I got out, I went to like a program for the repeat offenders, and it was supposed to be a 2-year program. And like, man, like I really enjoyed it. Like I got really involved in recovery and the whole aspect of like, being of service. And I started helping the guys that were coming off the bus, you know what I mean? And I started doing that and, volunteering myself, for no reason, you know what I mean? And just helping. And I ended up being able to leave. I had to live in Dallas for a year, and I ended up they cut me loose, and I got to go, back to Austin. And, I continued to do everything, you know what I mean? Like I worked all the steps in order, you know what I mean? Like if they ask, hey, you want to do this? You want to be a speaker? Yes. You want to fucking do the podcast? Yes. I'm hungry. Do you have money for food? Yes. You know what I mean? Always yes. You know what I mean?
Always,
always yes. That's what they said to do. They said always say yes. Yeah.
What is that thing? I want the hand of AA always to be there, and for that I'm grateful, or something like that. And it's like that's how you show gratitude, by not saying no to service work in AA.
Yeah. So I was on the phone with my sponsee, and he was like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to do this podcast." He's like, "Oh, that's cool." I was like, "Really?" Because
this podcast sucks.
No. It's like he was like, "No, that's sick though, dude." And I was like, "Yeah, but I've got so much other things that I have to do today." I was like, "No, I'm grateful, man. I'm grateful."
Yeah.
I mean, at this point now, it's like I'm super stoked to do it. I'm always,
it's wild. Like you get when you're using, your whole day is around like, how do I get money? How do I do this? How do I get high? And it just consumes 24 hours a day. And then eventually, once you're sober, like your life gets so full that. Like there's days where it's like 13, 14-hour days, and you're tired and you've had some frustrations throughout the day, but at the end of the day, right? Like, hey, I'm grateful these are high-class problems.
Yeah, and me and Carlos, we're pretty tight. We hang out a lot, and Carlos has a very full life now.
Yeah.
Like he's got a lot of stuff going on.
So tell us about, before we wrap things up, tell us about what your life is like today, man. What's all the good shit you got going? You get to cook your son breakfast every day.
Man, yeah, I have a new child. He's
brand new.
Yeah, he's 20 months.
Ooh.
Yeah, he's 20 months, and I have my daughter. She's 13. Man, I have a really good relationship with her. She's awesome. We hang out very often.
Business owner? You got a couple of businesses.
I have a business. I have like a private studio tattoo shop down in East Austin, just like right downtown, right by the cut.
Yeah.
What's it called?
It's called Communion. Yeah,
Pretty sick
and
tattoo
there's
shop.
4 of us that work there. And I own a pigment company too. I'm part owner of a pigment company. We make tattoo pigment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I have like an online merch store. I sell merch, and
Where can people find this stuff?
they can't. It's really hard to find. It's very exclusive. I'm just kidding. No, it's just communiontattoo.com. There's a bunch of stuff on there. I try to keep it updated. Man, we just bought a house in Pflugerville. I was telling you before.
Homeowner, man.
Yeah. I still have the house that's right down there by the cut.
Yeah.
So, but it was like, those houses are so small. It's like, man, it wouldn't have been,
Those
it wouldn't
old
have been
school
big
Austin
enough.
houses with the wood floor and the tiny doorknobs and all that.
Yeah. Well, it's been redone and stuff. Yeah.
It's got bigger doorknobs now.
Yeah, it's got big doorknobs. Okay. We don't have the little doorknobs anymore.
And let's give it a plug. What t-shirt are you wearing there?
Oh, this is Cherry's, my partner. She just started a wheel company.
Cherry's
skateboard.
Wheels.
Yeah, Cherry's Wheels. Yeah, and she's they're really, really cool. It's a really cool. It's female owned. I don't really have anything to do with it at all, other than I support
just represent.
it.
They have some sick videos.
They've got some really cool videos done by this really hot dude.
Ooh,
Super hot.
looks like he's about 25.
Yeah.
No eye wrinkles at all.
Yeah, no. I like that.
All right, you want to do some little rapid fire questions?
Beep, 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 beep.
Rapid fire question time.
That's not as cool.
It's rapid fire question time.
All right, you ready? These are going to be Really
Rapid
quick,
fire
really
questions.
fast.
Okay.
Really fast.
Yes.
When was the last time you did a kickflip?
2 years ago.
Okay.
How many days have you been sober?
Days?
Days.
Do you want me to look at my phone?
No. Go.
Give a guess.
I can't do the math like that.
Just
Guess
give
what?
us a number. We need a number.
3,586.
We'll have to check with that. 10 years? Okay. It's probably maybe close. I don't know.
Probably close.
All right. Out of all of your friends, who is your son's favorite person?
Jason.
Really? Oh, I
Jason
was not
Cabello.
fishing for a compliment on that one.
All right.
I think you're his favorite.
Yeah, I know.
Out of all your tattoos, which is the most significant to you?
I have no idea. I
Just pick one.
just pick one. Maybe my daughter's name.
There
Yeah.
we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
And
One
what is, if you have one song that you could say kind of sums up you and your recovery and makes you feel good and like positive,
The Carlos Truan anthem.
what would it be?
Oh no. What?
You could just tell me your favorite song if you don't want to.
Oh,
get too
okay.
deep into personal.
Man, what's your favorite song, Jason?
My favorite song would probably be.
You can't have one favorite song.
What was the last song that when you were in a bad mood you listened to and it put you in a better mood?
Total Eclipse.
Totally
Once
Eclipse of the
upon a
Heart.
time I
That's a
was
long
falling
song.
in
It takes you
love.
that long to get back into the
Now
mood. It's like
I'm
11 minutes.
falling
But I don't know
apart.
why. That's the last song that I just listened to in the car.
Nothing I can
Yeah.
do. Total eclipse of the heart.
Sing it for us. Beginning to end. All right. Any advice or anything you want to say out
Last
there?
words before
Last
we wrap it up.
words.
To someone struggling.
Sure.
Yeah.
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 I mean, right? We can only do like what I can only tell anyone what I did. You know what I mean? And I was told to do everything, so I did everything. You know, and you know, and I didn't do it. I'm sure I didn't do it right. You know, I'm sure I didn't. You know, and I was told that. Thank God that I was told like, hey, there's no right or wrong way. Just fucking do it. You know what I mean? And then when you're done, do it again.
And then help the next guy.
And then pass it on. And that's how I ended up here.
That's
You
the
know?
secret. That's
Yeah.
the secret. These guys that come in and out and do treatment a billion times.
And
you know,
they-
I tried. I mean, like I was like, oh, I'm not good at it. I can't read. You know what I mean? I don't understand the
they
words.
got the
and,
big book on audio.
You know, and it's like, and it was so simple. And I remember the the sponsor I had was like, I was like, well, I don't understand this. He's like, don't worry about it, Holmes. Just fucking do it.
And you know what?
That's
What
it.
I've always noticed, and this is because I tried a bunch of times. There's never been one person who I've met who's gotten clean and sober by sitting there and trying to intellectualize and pick everything apart and say like, this is why this is wrong and this is why this doesn't make sense. Like,
Just do it.
that shit
Yeah,
doesn't
we
work.
don't question it, man. We just do it. You know, and it somehow magically works, and your life becomes like this thing, and it's just like
Imagine they have bigger doorknobs.
Bigger doorknobs. You know what I mean? Like no cracks on the floor.
Well, this is great, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I love you very much, man.
Love you
I
too,
always
bro.
love hanging out with you. So
Yeah.
thanks for coming on and taking
Yeah,
time out of your
thanks.
busy day.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Well, that's the end of our show. And as we like to say here on Talksicology, there's 1,000 ways in,
And 1,000 ways out.
and we hope you find yours. Check us out next week.
We don't do that song anymore.
Once upon a time, I was
All right.